rebooted once again with a new creative team, Al Ewing on writing, Martín Cóccolo as the artist, and Matthew Wilson on colors. And then of course the amazing Alex Ross doing covers again because he is Marvel's absolute favorite cover artist right now, which makes sense because if he draws the cover, people usually buy it because Alex Ross is stupendous. However, just because it has an Alex Ross cover does not mean that the interior is going to be as good. I'm looking at you, Fantastic Four. But having read Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk and loving the series, I figured that this was probably going to be pretty quality. And boy oh boy, it is! In recent years, Thor has been portrayed as either really dumb and funny, like he is in the movies, or really, really dark. And it seems like writers have a hard time balancing the actual essence of Thor with one of those moods when they've locked onto one of those moods. Which makes sense because the best Thor stories have had a great deal of seriousness and a sense of weight to them, but they also have moments of grand adventure and high fantasy. And that's what makes Thor so interesting, is that he is a king who has these serious problems, but he's also an adventurer. So when I read Thor comics, I'm measuring them against two series in particular. The first is Walt Simonson's run on Thor from the 80s, which a lot of the characters and costumes and settings in Thor Ragnarok were based on. They were based on Walt Simonson's art style from this series. It's super colorful and exciting and adventurous, and we have new characters being introduced, but we also have Thor at the peak of Thorness. You know, he's speaking with that Asgardian vernacular, and you have to kind of think to figure out what he's saying, because no other comic speaks in that language. But it inspires you to look at the actual mythology that the character is based on. It makes it obvious that there is actual lore that they are drawing on for these stories. And the other series that I measure every Thor story by, J. Michael Straczynski and Olivier Coipel's Thor from 2007. This came out right after Civil War, and it deals with Thor returning from death because he had died right before Civil War happened, which is why Thor is not a main character in Civil War. It's because he wasn't around in the comics either. So he comes back from death, sees what everyone has done, and he's trying to rebuild Asgard and find a new home for it. Straczynski's writing is, as always, really, really good, and he nails the depth and weight of Thor. And there have been a lot of other good Thor series since then, like Jason Aaron, for example, had a really good one, but those are the two that I'm really measuring this Thor story against. There have only been 4 issues of this series so far. The last one came out, I think, last week, and so far Al Ewing is nailing Thor's history. He's adding characters that we haven't seen before, but they're authentic and they're rooted in the mythology, so they feel important. The way he's handling Thor as a character is very respectful from where Thor has been. Thor is not some idiot. He's actually using his brain, he's using his heart, and he says very meaningful things consistently. And there are a lot of great moments in this first issue that are nostalgic but feel fresh, and I would point all of them out if I had time for like a half-hour video, but I don't. You'll just have to pick it up yourself. As I read this first issue, I could tell that this was going to be the best Thor series I've read in a while. And then at the very end, we get introduced to the big villain of this series, Utgard Thor. And he is scary. He's a big deal. For a lot of this issue, it was very colorful and bright pages, and it felt very high fantasy and very hopeful and interesting. Just look at that page. That dude is scary. This art is amazing. Look at the emotion in this art. Ho, that's sick. So by the end of issue 1, I was hooked. And one of the little details about this issue that I really liked was that Al Ewing gave Thor the chance to just go and live a normal life for a while. He gave us a few pages where Thor was just chilling, enjoying being a dude in New York and doing things with people. And that's the kind of thing that heroes need to be shown doing more often. Casually interacting with people. Not necessarily saving the day, but also not going out of their way to make a political statement when they're not fighting crime. Because a lot of the time, their job is saving lives. So they're either doing that or they're being a regular person. And if we don't get to see them being an actual person, it takes away the human element of the story, and then it makes all the superhero-y stuff that happens later just less believable. So this first issue really balanced out everything I want to see from Thor and make me believe in the story and make me come back for more because I know the stakes. Issue 2 was Thor's actual fight with Utgard Thor, which went not as well as it should go, but then Thor did a thing with his hammer that I wasn't aware his hammer could do, and he fixed all the problems that Utgard Thor caused, which was a little bit too clean. But I guess what makes it okay is that he used the All-Father power to do it, and now he's got to go into the All-Sleep. So he did this really crazy thing that he normally can't do, but now he's got to do a really long nap, so I guess that balances it out and it's okay. And then just as Thor is about to go take his nap, Loki shows up, and Loki's got some secret that they're hiding and we're not sure what it is. And then Loki asks Thor some really cryptic questions that made me a little apprehensive the first time I read it. And then we get this new aspect of Loki, and Ewing makes makes a point to say it's an aspect of Loki, which is cool, because if you think about how long this mythology has been around, it makes sense that people would tell stories about Loki with different points throughout time, right? So Loki might be different based on the point that needs to get across. So the Loki that we're dealing with in this story is Loki, the teller of tales. Not just some angry stepbrother who's angry at his brother who got all the power. So that's cool. I like what that's setting up. Loki as a device to get Thor to become a better Thor. But then I didn't love what Loki did in issue 3, and it took up the entire issue, this trick that Loki played on Thor, because what it really boiled down to was just Loki wants Thor to remember to use his brain once in a while, which I don't think we needed a whole issue for. But at least we got to see Thor being Thor, and he forged a new hammer, and that's pretty cool. He's on this alien planet. We see him like having a temper tantrum, so we know he still has anger. He's not just totally calm all the time because he's so old now that he's wise. He still gets angry. So I guess the point of this whole story was just to explore the human element of Thor some more, which I'm never gonna complain about. What I'm walking away from this issue with is pretty much zero respect for Loki as a villain. Like, you know that Loki is only testing Thor so that Thor will get better. So he's basically Thor's friend, but he's posing as Thor's villain. I'm just not afraid of Loki now. Which, maybe that's okay, because we've got Good God Thor to be afraid of, while Loki is just a device in this story. So maybe that's okay. But when Loki is trying to be really scary on this page, I have about the same reaction that Thor has. Really? So out of the 4 issues that have come out so far, this one was my least favorite, but I can see where it's going, and I'm going to have patience and trust that it works out, because Al Ewing usually works things out. And then in issue 4, we get my favorite thing, which is 2 superheroes who normally get along fighting each other for no reason. Someday they're going to stop doing that. The reason I ended up being okay with this fight between Storm and Thor is because Thor got to do a pretty cool speech at the end of it. And the speech is really powerful. It's a real showing up to fight the good fight because we're the good guys kind of speech, and it's believable. It's authentic, and I really enjoyed it. And I also really enjoyed the reference to Willie Lumpkin. Good job, Al. And then bada boom, Storm is Thor again. And then bada boom, we got Beta Ray Bill, and he's a Thor now too. And okay, Loki is also a Thor now. I guess that's okay. And then Jane Foster shows up, and bada boom, she's Thor again. And now we got 5 Thors sharing the same hammer, which is okay as long as they each get to hold the hammer once every 60 seconds. Because remember, if Thor does not hold his hammer for 60 seconds, he reverts back to Donald Blake. And even though I feel like this Thor core thing happened really quick, like it happened a little faster than I would like it to, and it feels a little bit too lighthearted for what's going on at the time. Though maybe that's a choice. Maybe that's a mood choice by Al Ewing. I don't know. Even though I'm not 100% committed to this part of the story, I still really appreciate the gallivanting, high fantasy mood that this has. It feels like classic Thor. It's a wonderful return to form, and I am really curious to see where it goes. And I hope it has real consequences for the characters, because if it doesn't have consequences for the characters, then it might as well just not have happened. But I am curious to see where it goes. And then, at the end of issue 4, I'm pretty sure that we get the return of an Al Ewing specific villain. A villain from the Immortal Hulk storyline, which was great, you should buy it. But he's like part god now? Or maybe not? I don't know what a Skald is. He says he's some kind of Skald. I just gotta look it up. But see what I'm saying? The series makes you want to look up Asgardian lore so that you can understand it better. And even though it's more work, I like that because it's part of a larger universe. It's bigger than just this issue. It's bigger than just this character. It's bigger than just Marvel. It's the history of storytelling. So I don't mind having to do a little bit of extra work. But I should really figure out what a Skald is so I know what's going on here. So I have been loving this series of Thor. I'm going to keep collecting it absolutely and treasure it in my collection. Thank you, Al Ewing, for doing something important with this character, but staying rooted in what made him cool to begin with. And Martín Cóccolo and Matthew Wilson are doing an excellent job on the art. You can tell it's great art when I haven't picked through it and found all the things I don't like about it, because I didn't find anything I didn't like about it. The art was so appropriate and so well done and so consistent that I could just focus on the story, and that's what great art is. So I'm rating Thor so far a 9 out of 10. And really the only problem that I have with it is I'm not loving what Loki is doing, I guess. Loki as a plot device seems, I don't know, a little forced. I think I like the idea. I'm excited to see where it goes, but I'm apprehensive. So that's why it's a 9, not a 10. But man, give me some more of that. Utgard Thor! His pretty sack. Go buy it. It's one of the best things Marvel is making right now. So today, I don't have a question from the audience. I just want to give a shout out to Sam Freeman, who is the author of Basic Instinct that I reviewed previously. I gave the comic a bad review, but he reached out and he was super professional about it. Really great sport, and then we ended up chatting about the industry in general for a while, and I learned a lot of stuff. So hey, if you're a creator and I review your book, I would love to hear from you because I want to know more about what went into making these comics so that I can better review them, so I can better serve your work. So thanks again, Sam Freeman. You're a star. And please keep making comics, because that's what we're here for. We're here because we love comics. So even if I don't like specific issues, I still want to read more. Oot!